Before your baby son is kidnapped in front of you, before Caesar takes over Nevada, and before we get the opportunity to detonate a nuke inside a city from a nearby skyscraper, there was a different kind of Fallout. The original Fallout was released in 1997, essentially as a direct successor to another series called Wasteland. Basically, there was a naming rights issue to using the title, and the developer Interplay Productions essentially decided they were just going to change the name and create a similar series titled Fallout. If you're into video games, you're familiar with the series. Definitely the modern Bethesda first-person shooter RPG series, but the original game and its successor, Fallout 2, were both isometric, top-down turn-based RPGs that are really legends in their own right. I did not play this game when it first came out. It took me until after playing the third Fallout to go back and play the first and the second, and I really have fond memories of both. I'll be going through this playthrough as if it were my first time and explaining the story as I go, so here's your spoiler warning on a 25-year-old game.
War. War never changes. The Romans waged war to gather slaves and wealth. Spain built an empire from its lust for gold and territory. Hitler shaped a battered Germany into an economic superpower. But war never changes.
The game starts out with the famous intro of War Never Changes. I love this intro. This is one of the coolest videos I ever saw as a kid, especially in a video game, and it really kind of sets the mood for what you're about to play. Hitting New Game lets you pick a pre-existing character template, or you can create your own. I'm going to create my own for this playthrough, so we get a good old character RPG sheet. I can adjust my starting stats, each is going to impact my in-game skills. I can pick through some traits that do assorted stuff to my character, and I can pick which skills I want to start with. Each of these skills I pick give me a huge bump to the skills right off the bat, but I can always increase my skills in my unselected stuff later on, every time I level. To play it safe, I'm going to start with the standard small guns crit build here, and probably transition to energy weapons later on in the game. After character creation, our intro video is with Captain Forehead here, who's the Overseer. My vault, number 13, needs a new water purification system, and the vault needs the chip within 150 days or everyone here is going to die of dehydration. So, my character is tasked with leaving the safety of my vault and crossing the wasteland to find the needed chip. The door opens up, and I go to town on the local rat population right outside the vault door. In case you weren't aware, and you missed my intro, unlike modern Fallout games, the first two were top-down RPGs, similar to Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, and the combat is turn-based, and your character gets a certain amount of action points per turn. Moving, switching weapons, attacking, or using an item drains your action points. Once you're out of action points, you can either hit turn or the game automatically goes to the next character's turn. Getting past all these rats, which have a habit of hitting pretty damn hard, I get my first view of the overworld map. Basically, to move from location to location, we travel on this world map. And as we're going, we can get random encounters or find some new spots. It's not a bad system, it's just certainly pretty dated from a modern standpoint. The first, air quotes, city I find is called Shady Sands, and it's a real dump. There's some people to talk to and barter with, and here I get my first real quests. A local scientist is trying to make a cure for rad scorpion venom, so I'm asked to clear out a nearby cave with them. And there's a raider encampment nearby that's causing the town some problems that I have to take care of. Ignoring this shit, I'm going to keep going to Vault 15 on my search for the water chip. In the vault, there's a ton of rats and some mole rats, which are more like bears than they are in the 3D Fallout games. A little bit further in, there's an elevator shaft, but to go down the level, I'm going to need a rope. So here's a new mechanic. Basically, I can use tools in my inventory to manipulate the environment. Thankfully, I have a rope, so I can use it to go down a level. Looking around this area, there's a lot of stuff to fight, but unfortunately, there's a lot of cave-ins all over the place, so the game tells me that I'm going to have to look elsewhere to find this purification chip. In Vault 15, I find some dynamite, and since there's nothing here for me, I decide to head back to Shady Sands to see if maybe I can either complete some quests or find out a little bit more about where to find another chip. At the front gates, I asked this fella to take me to the Rad Scorpion Cave, and using this dynamite, I actually use it to blow up the entrance to the Rad Scorpion Cave. I get another level, and this time it gives me another perk, so I'm going to go with Smooth Talker, since my guy has really shit charisma here. After going through that vault, I've actually got some coin now, so I can use it to buy my first companion, which is this fella here named Ian. Next up is taking care of the local raider camp. I head to the camp and basically just go in guns blazing. I'm not entirely sure how I was supposed to make this happen, but I actually kill them all. I did lose Ian in the process, but whatever. I got a lot of sweet new gear. Moving on, I make my way to a place called Junktown, and it looks like there are some issues between the local crime lord named Gizmo and the mayor named Killian. Exploring the building marked hospital down in the basement, apparently the surgeon here is cutting up human meat to sell at the hub for human consumption. There's this weird dialogue tree where the surgeon apparently rips out one of my eyes, I guess. This game is crazy, and the storytelling is always fantastic. I love the writing. I don't really want to have my eye lost, because I can't hit anything, so I guess I'm just going to die and reload. But let's keep going and not do that again. In what's called the Darkwater General Store, I meet Killian, who says that the city has problems. But right after I finish talking to him, an assassin comes in with an attempt to take him out. It seems pretty obvious that this was done by Gizmo, but we're going to need some proof. So they asked me to wear a wire and get Gizmo to confess to me. In the back room of the casino, I find Gizmo, whose character model really looks pretty awful. He essentially admits to me that he sent an assassin to kill Killian, but he also propositions me to become his new assassin. So I go back to Killian, and he actually pays me to become his bodyguard. With the help of the local law enforcement, our posse goes to get rid of Gizmo. This is obviously a pretty big fight, but I end up snagging some pretty great loot. I kind of wish maybe that I'd sided with Gizmo, but oh well. I'm done with Junktown and I'm moving on. I do have a new location pop up as an option now called the Necropolis. I could either head there or go to the hub. Since I have 122 days left before the vault runs out of water, I'm going to detour over to the Necropolis. This area is infested with ghouls, which, if you're familiar with the Fallout series, are irradiated zombie people. Some of them are cool and just look zombie looking, but others, later called feral ghouls, are essentially wildlife and will try to attack you. Going past a few, I notice a manhole cover with a lot of footprints looking like people are going down it. In the sewers, we meet another group of ghouls, and one of them lets me know that they actually have a water purification system set up further in the sewers that isn't working right. Maybe we can steal our chip from them here. Sneaking on through the sewers, I find myself talking to this guy, who's named Set. He looks great. And he gives me a quest to kill a couple of local super mutants at the watershed up ahead. This is my first interaction with the super mutants, and I use my superior speech to sneak past the head guy here named Harry. Heading down some hidden sewers, I end up outside of an old vault with glowing ones, which are basically irradiated ghouls out front. At the bottom floor of the vault, I find a working computer with the water chip. This is what will save my vault, but pulling it out will basically just doom all the ghouls up top to die of dehydration. If my repair skill wasn't so low, I would be able to repair their water pump, but it's not. So it sucks to suck, I guess. I'm stealing the chip and they're all going to die. Since I now have the chip, I hightail it across the wasteland back to Vault 13 so I can save my people. The chip is installed, and instead of a sweet party and a thank you, the overseer sends me to the library. Well, that's game, right? Nope. Our dear overseer actually has a new quest for us. He's very concerned about the super mutants, and he's determined that someone is actively making mutants. And given that I'm the only person who's really had out of the vault experience, it's going to be up to me to take care of the mutants and their leader. Leaving the vault, however, the game doesn't give me any new locations to check out, so I guess now I'm going to go to the hub and see what I can find out. The hub is definitely the biggest city yet, and there's a lot to look around at. It seemed like this city is also run by a crime lord, so I'm wondering if the game is going to have the same story as the last city. One thing I do notice about the cities is a lot of it is just empty. Empty buildings, empty bookshelves with nothing in them. It's kind of just a lot of void. I'm sure it's kind of the limitations of a game being built back in 1997, but it is kind of immersion killing to see everything just be so empty. But after talking to a whole bunch of people and going back to the main map, I now have two different locations, the Brotherhood and the Boneyard. I'm familiar with the series, so let's go do the Brotherhood now. If you're familiar with it, then you know why I'm going there. The Brotherhood location looks like an entrance to maybe a missile silo with two guys standing out front. I asked the guy at the door if I can join up with his little group, and I'm told to join I'm going to have to go to the ruins of an ancient order nearby and grab something to prove that I was there. Sounds easy enough, right? As soon as I say I will, the guy next to him laughs, and now I'm given the impression that this is a terrible idea. After a quick chat with the other guard, it seems that many people have attempted this quest in, quote-unquote, the Glow, and all have failed. Lovely. I'm not entirely sure what kind of drugs that guy was on because the glow, as it's called, is actually nowhere nearby. It's pretty far away. But on the way, one of my favorite random encounters happens. Basically, I come upon Bob's Car Mart, and Bob is here trying to sell me one of his fully inspected new vehicles. This guy is obviously completely insane, and exploring his house really has nothing of value. The developers basically just put this in the game for no real reason, but it's fantastic. It's just craziness, for no point at all. Shortly after this, I get another random encounter. This time I come upon a wrecked UFO with skeletons of some aliens out front. The alien bodies contain an alien blaster and a fuzzy painting. The craft has assigned this as property of Area 51, return if found. It's really shit like this that makes this game and this series so amazing. Just a random chance encounter that opens up so many questions and really makes this game quirky and enjoyable. Hell yes, Fallout. This is fantastic. I make it to the glow, and there's a bunch of dead bodies surrounding a huge crater. It's obviously not a natural crater since it looks like steel girders are sticking out from the sides, but being here only for a few seconds, I start getting irradiated, which means I probably need to find a rad suit or something like that before I can attempt this shit. So I'm going to back out and head to the Boneyard instead. The Boneyard is actually a collection of a few different locations. Our first spot is called Aditum, which is another city with a ton of people walking around called the Regulators. The mayor here offers me 2,000 caps to deal with the nearby gang called the Blades, which is a really lame-ass name. He tells me that the leader of the Blades kidnapped and tortured his son, leaving the kid impaled on a post outside the city gates, which sounds pretty fucked, so if that's the case, I'm in. Let's take care of these guys. Just to the north is the Blades camp, and they actually seem a lot more like a refugee camp than a band of marauders. Inside is the leader of this band, and she kind of flips out when I tell her that Zimmerman accused them of killing his son. According to her, the Regulators killed Zim's son because he was trying to pass information about what's really going on to the mayor. It seems like she's telling the truth, and to fix this mess, we're going to have to deal with the Regulators. And to do that, the Blades need guns. There's a camp to the north called the Gunrunners, but apparently between here and there is a Deathclaw nest. If you played these games before, you know that Deathclaws are no joke. I'm not sure I'm strong enough to take care of one now, but maybe I'll save and give it a whirl, which, okay, that didn't work. These Deathclaw are smoking me, so let's try a different approach. Maybe instead I'll find some Rad-X and try the glow again. I could really just use some better weapons and maybe the armor that the Brotherhood has in their little compound. I managed to buy a bunch of Rad-X back at the hub, and now I can head back to the glow. Taking it, I'm no longer being irradiated, and I can use some rope to go down inside. Inside it's pretty much empty, but I do find a dead Brotherhood member. Taking a piece of his armor should be good enough to prove that I made it inside, so now I can head back to the Brotherhood to see if I can join up. I give the piece of the armor back to the dude at the gate, and he lets me inside. This is by far the nicest area in the game yet. It's super futuristic, and it's clear that these guys could really run everything in the wasteland if they really wanted to. Since I passed the first test, I become an initiate, and I get some new armor and a bunch of ammo, but I'm gonna have to wait before I can get any of the really cool shit. The equipment guy gives me a quest to go to the hub and figure out what happened to some other lost initiates, so that's something I get to take care of soon. Down on the 4th level, I meet General Maxon, who tells me that he's been losing scouts to the north. From my discussions with my Vault Overseer, it seems pretty obvious that what's killing his guys is an army of super mutants. The general thinks I'm right, but he asks me to scout it out for the Brotherhood. I accept, and as a reward, they're giving me a new sniper rifle. Leaving the Brotherhood, it's time to go to the hub and find that missing initiate. He's in the old town held prisoner by some goons, and they put up a really strong fight. Strong enough that my video actually cuts out at one point. Unfortunately, they do kill my companion, but his death isn't in vain because for my good works, I'm actually rewarded with my very own power armor back at the Brotherhood. I think now it's time to go back to the Boneyard and kill off the Regulators. So in the Boneyard, first things first. It's time to tell Zimmerman that his son was actually killed by the Regulators. That'll get him all riled up. Power armor is actually legit as fuck in this game, and these guys' bullets really don't do shit to me. And thankfully, I don't actually have to kill this dog out front, which I was kind of worried about. As soon as the last Regulator is killed, the townspeople instantly start thanking me for freeing them. My reward for killing like 30 people to help the Blades is actually just a nice thank you and like 500 XP. Okay, fuck you, lady. I really should have murdered everybody because that's not a good enough reward for killing everybody in this entire town. Now I'm off to the northwest to find the mutant stronghold, and I get this random encounter. I'm not really a Doctor Who fan, but I love seeing this quirky type shit in this game. Essentially, the game wants me to stumble around until I find a military base with the big-ass super mutant out front. This is my cue to get the hell out of here and go back to the Brotherhood and explain what I found. After explaining the threat to the Council of Elders, I'm given 3 paladins to go and take care of the mutant base. This is like a legit army of super mutants, and they gave me 3 guys. So, yeah, that's video game logic. Me and my crew show up, and I think we're just going to go in guns blazing because fuck these greenskins. So these Brotherhood guys actually wreck with their rocket launchers, like it's ridiculous. Inside there's tons and tons of mutants, but that alien blaster that I picked up from the UFO absolutely slaughters these things. I continue down floor 1, mopping up the mutants, and then floor 2, and then 3, and then finally to 4. There's a Mr. Robot handy that I'm able to fix, and he goes off on his cleaning mission, RIP. Finally, making it to the sergeant of the Master's army. Being super sneaky, I'm actually able to lure his guards away and take care of them one by one. Which is great because even with my overpowered alien gun, this guy ends up killing me several times. Finally, I take care of the fella, who seems to have a sweet death scene, but because of the shitty walls in this game, I don't get to see it. Now I head northwest of this area and rig one of the VAT computers to initiate a self-destruct sequence. Sprinting out of this joint, there's a cutscene of the VATs blowing up, and the game gives me 10,000 XP. I've now taken care of the army production, but my last quest for Vault 13 is to kill the guy that's actually creating all these super mutants. But I'm not actually entirely sure where that is. Back in the Brotherhood, no one seems to give me any info on where the leader of the super mutants would be, and the Overseer doesn't really give me any guidance, so I'm not sure if I missed something in passing here, but I guess I just need to explore the map. However, I do notice that just south of Boneworks, there's actually a big green circle that I haven't gone in yet. Bingo. The first robed guy here mentions a master. Okay, so I'm in the right spot. This area is pretty cool. It's essentially a giant church with radiation symbol artwork all over, and inside there's a bunch of video screens showing Unity, Pray, Follow, and someone in a Guy Fawkes mask. It actually kind of reminds me of that old Apple commercial. As far as the church itself, none of these folks are actually really nice or helpful, and most just tell me to go to hell. But then I meet Laura, whose facial movements creep me out. No one helps me, so I threaten this purple-robed shopkeeper to give me his gear, and I get into a battle. But these guys don't really realize I just neutralized an entire super mutant base by myself, so yeah, not a problem. I find a CDC badge on the shopkeeper, and I snag that. Using my newly stolen badge on the locked door, I can move forward. On the second floor, there's 3 rooms, 2 of which I can sense Nightkin, and the third has a guy named Dane in it. He keeps saying different random shit, so I keep talking to him because I'm genuinely curious about how many lines of dialogue they wrote for this guy. I keep heading up, and eventually I get to the top of the Cathedral. Here I can talk to Morpheus. Yes, Morpheus. This guy has like a reverse Hitler mustache here, I guess. Just the sides, no middle lip, and it's really strange. But this much less cooler version of Morpheus attacks me pretty quickly, and I have to take care of him in the 3-night kit on this floor. However, this does introduce a problem with my handy-dandy alien weapon. Since it disintegrates guys, it's actually destroying the black badge here that I need to go to the basement, so...
No disintegration. As you wish.
Yeah, my boy Boba wouldn't be happy. The basement of the cathedral is dark, but in the bottom right there's obviously a different colored wall panel. So searching everything around me finds a secret lever. And after dying to these weird mutant creatures in the next area several times, I find that if I just wear these purple robes, I can actually run right past them to the guards in front of the vault. On the second level down, I decide it's time to just kill everything. Several times, however, these super mutants land a critical hit that one-shots me, which is really, really obnoxious. There's not much I can do about it, but keep reloading and keep going. And this actually happens over and over and over again on this level, so if you're playing, save a lot. There's some holding cells with some prisoners that I managed to free, and they actually just explode as they run away. So, oops, sorry guys, I tried. Randomly talking to this group of nutbags in the northwest corner, one of them gives me something called a nullifier. I'm not sure what this is, but maybe it's somehow related to the master. The third floor down is really nasty and covered in goo. It's also swarming with super mutants. This isn't going to be an easy fight, and I actually almost got them all down by kind of cheesing the game, sorta. Basically, I just hid in this closet and killed them one by one as they walked through the door. And of course, as I'm about to kill them all, my game crashes. So I have to load a new save earlier on in the fight, but I do manage to take care of them all. All the way to the right, there's a wall with a door. And entering this door, there's a hallway filled with even more nasty-ass goo and shit. And at the very end, in an overseer's chair, is the master. Talking to him gives me a few different endings. The first one, I decide to join him, and I force the wasteland into his unity plan. Basically turning everyone into super mutants, so I get dropped into a vat of goo and turned to a super mutant. I also give up the location of my vault, and I get a nice video of the super mutants mowing down the entire place. Another option is to kill him, which really wasn't too difficult, but he does spawn mutants one after another behind me, which is kind of a pain. Once he's dead, the whole place is set to self-destruct, and I have to run the hell out of here. But apparently no one tells the guards at the front door that there is a war going on because they're just hanging out there. Once outside, a cutscene of the building blowing up, and we learn the fate of the wasteland. Depending on who or what I help, I guess I learn what happens in the future. So saving Shady Sands creates the new California Republic, which we see in the future games. The Brotherhood slowly reintroduces tech into New California and turns its focus on research and development. You know, that kind of stuff. Basically, this is where you learn how your choices affect the final outcome of the game. The last thing for me to do is return to the vault and tell everybody of what I've managed to accomplish. Back in the vault, the Overseer is super happy with my work, but this absolute piece of shit decides that the entire vault will want to emulate me and leave the vault. So instead of letting me back in and being, a decent human being, this human garbage decides to banish me from the vault forever. What an absolute fucker. Unfortunately, I don't have the Bloody Mess perp, or I actually have the opportunity to shoot him in the back of the head. So I might actually have to play this game again just so I can kill this asshole. Alright, that's it. That's the game. What a treat. So let's go through some of my thoughts here. So I've kind of been starting with the sound category to kind of ease into my critiques of these things, but there's not much point here. Frankly, there really just isn't much sound. There's a few haunting chords for music and some jingles here and there, but it's really not that much. Your guns sound like your average pew-pew and the lasers make a zap. It's cool that the major NPCs are voiced, I like that, but I wouldn't recommend this game based on sound. It's just not what it's here for. If we're talking about visuals, technically this game is dated, right? It's very, very dated. As far as isometric top-down RPGs, this one really looks pretty rough. Which, it's okay, because this game came out in 1997. I don't think you can expect anything that would necessarily look good by today's standards, but it's really not horrible. The cutscenes look pretty PlayStation 1, jagged with boxy body parts, but it's also not horrible. The game is certainly playable today, and it really doesn't make you want to claw your eyes out or anything. It's just, 25 years old. Now, let's talk about gameplay. So the gameplay of the original Fallout is, it's frankly a mixed bag. On one side, it's rough and it's missing quite a few quality of life measures. Things like having to go into my inventory, equip a med pack, and then use the action button to heal myself multiple times, even while out of combat, is frankly annoying as all hell. There's no right-click use in your inventory, and even using dynamite, I couldn't figure out how to drop items out of my inventory for the longest time, which actually led to me blowing myself up several times. It's really not that well explained at all. I also mentioned earlier that the cities can really feel pretty lifeless. There's NPCs moving around, but many of them don't or can't speak, and the buildings are empty and filled with not much to do. Again, 25-year-old game, what do you expect? Frankly, I would like to see a little bit more going into that, but it's alright. The companion system in this game is completely shit. Frankly, it's just shit. In general, they're really good gear mules, but they tend to die really easily, so they're not even good at that. Swapping gear on them is a chore, and to actually take weapons and armor back from them, you have to go in and use your steal function to get it back. It's really poorly done, and it seems like the developers didn't have a good idea of how to implement or handle it in this game. The combat itself really isn't even that great either. We do get a VAT system, which is an interesting item. Basically, I can pay a few extra action points to aim at a certain body part. It's the start of something great, but the combat really doesn't get you excited to get into fights. It's a lot of click, wait, turn-based, etc. Essentially, once you have the weapons that you plan to use for the rest of the game, you just stick with it. So combat really isn't anything special either. As far as, side quests and things to do, well, it's worth pointing out that I clocked in at 18 hours on this playthrough, and I feel like I missed quite a lot of stuff in this game. There's a ton of things under the surface that beg multiple playthroughs, so it's worth noting that as far as bang for your buck, and I don't even know if you have to pay for this game anymore, it's certainly worth the entry price. Anyway, so okay, the combat is lackluster, the gameplay is dated, the visuals aren't pretty, the sound is kind of so what is there to like about this game? Well, while some of the individual components of this game are kind of weak, the sum of all of its parts is, in short, fantastic. As far as RPGs go, this one really deserves all the praise it gets. It seems simple enough, right? Nuclear fallout, you grow up in a shelter, you have to go out for one reason or another to save your people. Out in the wasteland, there's tons and tons of stuff that quirky devs decide to throw in there to make the player want to look to the next area, or talk to the next person. There's so many weird one-off things around every corner and different ways to complete tasks that really makes this game so special. It's definitely rough in many ways, and it builds upon the next game, but you can really start to see the beautiful beginnings of a franchise here. I genuinely loved that every new area opened up a new direction for the player to go. Once you find the Brotherhood, trying to get my hands on some sweet power armor was awesome. And just like seeing the ghoul or super mutants for the first time was awesome. I knew that those were going to be brought back in some way or another. This game really is not perfect by any means, and it has a lot of rough edges. But at its core, it's really worth coming back to, if it's been a while. And it's also still worth playing through if you're a fan of the series but have never tried the first. It plays reasonably well on modern systems, and it can probably be found for essentially next to nothing or nothing. I have no idea. It's 25 years old. I'm sure it's probably for free legally somewhere. As far as RPGs go, this is one I'm always going to recommend, and frankly, I can't wait to play the second after going through this one. So, look forward to that one, guys. I still have some other games I need to play, but that's on the radar, and I'm really excited to come back to the Fallout world again.